The most explosive lines attributed in the source material to public figures were preserved only where they are supported by current reporting. One of the clearest is Trump's threat over the Strait of Hormuz, which has been widely reported by major outlets. Reuters and other outlets also support the broader context of escalating U.S.-Iran tensions, militia attacks in Iraq, and the relocation of NATO mission personnel from Iraq to Europe. In Baghdad, a fragile pause has opened around one of Iraq's most sensitive military zones as the fallout from the widening U.S.-Iran confrontation reaches deeper into the country's capital. After days of drone and rocket pressure around installations near Baghdad International Airport, attention has shifted to the Victoria Base Complex, a long-standing logistical node associated with U.S. and coalition activity since the 2003 invasion. The moment is being cast by Iran-aligned factions as a strategic breakthrough, but on closer inspection, the picture is more complicated. What is unfolding appears to be part battlefield pressure, part emergency force protection, and part acceleration of a withdrawal process that had already been under discussion for many months. Iran-backed armed groups grouped under the banner of the Islamic Resistance in Iraq have sharply intensified operations since the regional war widened in late February. These factions, long embedded in Iraq's fractured security landscape, say they are striking American and allied positions in retaliation for U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran and in support of a broader regional campaign against Washington and its partners. Reuters has described the Islamic Resistance in Iraq as an umbrella organization of Shiite armed factions aligned with Tehran and one that has repeatedly targeted U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria since late 2023. The latest wave of attacks has been serious enough to alter military postures on the ground. Reuters reported strikes near U.S. diplomatic and military-linked facilities in Baghdad this month, including drone attacks near the airport zone and the U.S. embassy area. In that climate, air operations, troop movement, and base security have all come under growing strain. The sense of vulnerability is no longer confined to rhetoric from militia channels. It is reflected in real adjustments by Western missions operating in Iraq.
That is where the claims of victory begin to collide with the more measured language of official institutions. Iran-aligned groups are presenting the moment as proof that sustained attacks have forced the United States and NATO into retreat. Yet NATO's own public language has been more cautious.
It has said it is repositioning or adjusting its mission in Iraq because of security concerns while continuing its relationship with Iraqi authorities. Reuters separately reported that NATO personnel from the advisory mission were relocated to Europe, with operations shifting to Naples, Italy. That is a significant move. But it is not the same thing as NATO publicly admitting defeat, nor is there strong public evidence from major wire services that Washington formally pleaded for terms in the way militia statements claim. Still, symbolism matters in war, and Iraq's armed factions understand that well. For them, the visual of Western personnel leaving Baghdad under fire carries enormous propaganda value. Even where the underlying military reality is more bureaucratic than dramatic, the political message is potent. Foreign forces can no longer operate in central Iraq with confidence, and every relocation can be framed as proof that the balance has shifted. That narrative has become even more powerful because it overlaps with a real Iraqi state process already underway. In 2024, Reuters reported Baghdad and Washington were working from a phased plan that would see hundreds of coalition troops leave first, with the broader mission expected to end by 2026. So the present withdrawal dynamic sits at the intersection of two truths. One is that Iran-backed factions have increased pressure in a way that has made operations around Baghdad more dangerous and more politically difficult. The other is that the U.S.-led mission was already on a long runway toward drawdown. That means militia groups can plausibly claim they accelerated the process, even if they did not single-handedly create it. It also means official Iraqi figures can describe the same developments not as chaos, but as the implementation of sovereign decisions already in motion. The Iraqi government, led by Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, now finds itself trying to hold an increasingly unstable line between competing powers. On one side is Washington, still a major security partner. On the other is Iran, whose allied factions hold extensive influence inside Iraq's political and military ecosystem. Reuters reported this week that after deadly strikes on popular mobilization forces positions, Baghdad moved to summon both the U.S. and Iranian envoys to protest attacks on Iraqi territory. That balancing act tells the deeper story. Iraq is not merely a backdrop to this conflict. It is once again being pulled into the center of it. What gives this moment extra edge is the wider regional escalation. Since the war expanded on February 28th, the battlefield has stretched beyond Iran itself into Iraq, the Gulf, and key global energy routes. Markets and militaries alike have been watching the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil choke points. That is where Donald Trump injected one of the conflict's most incendiary threats. If Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Multiple current reports have referenced that threat, even as later reporting suggested the White House stepped back from immediate action. That statement sent a signal far beyond Tehran. Gulf states, already exposed to retaliation, feared that any direct U.S. attack on Iranian energy infrastructure could trigger a wider strike campaign against oil, gas, and desalination facilities across the region. Reuters reported that warnings from Gulf capitals helped shape Washington's subsequent pause. In other words, even before the militias in Iraq claimed momentum, America's regional partners were already warning that the conflict could spin into something vastly more destructive. Iran-aligned groups seized on that opening. In Iraq, militia rhetoric hardened into broader deterrent messaging aimed not just at troops and bases, but at the strategic economy of the region. The warning was clear: if Iran's infrastructure is hit, the infrastructure of its enemies and their partners may not be spared. That logic mirrors the asymmetric doctrine that Tehran and its allied networks have refined for years, avoiding simple battlefield symmetry in favor of pressure on logistics, energy systems, embassies, supply chains, and politically sensitive installations. In that context, the pressure around Baghdad is not an isolated front. It is part of a broader contest over who can impose the higher price. For the U.S. and its allies, the price includes force protection, diplomatic exposure, energy instability, and the risk of being drawn into a larger regional war. For Iran and its partners, the price includes direct strikes, assassinations, infrastructure loss, and the possibility of overreach. Both sides are trying to prove endurance. Both are also testing the other's appetite for escalation. There is another layer here, too: narrative warfare. Militia channels speak in the language of humiliation, collapse, and resistance. Official Western statements speak in the language of temporary adjustments, personnel safety, and mission continuity. Iraqi state statements speak in the language of sovereignty, de-escalation, and prior agreements. Each version serves a constituency. Each tries to shape what withdrawal means. Is it retreat under fire? Is it prudent repositioning? Is it the scheduled unwinding of a foreign mission? At the moment, all three stories are competing at once. What cannot be disputed is that the security environment around Baghdad has worsened fast. Reuters has documented drone strikes near U.S. facilities and NATO's relocation from Iraq to Europe. It has also reported deadly attacks on PMF positions and the Iraqi government's sharp reaction. Those are not abstract warning signs. They show a country under intense external and internal pressure, with armed factions trying to prove they can dictate events on the ground and international actors scrambling to reduce exposure without appearing to lose control. The military geography matters here. Baghdad carries symbolic weight that outstrips many other Iraqi locations. A reduced Western footprint in central Baghdad, especially around the airport zone, would be interpreted across the region as a visible contraction of American reach. Even if U.S. personnel remain elsewhere in Iraq, especially in Kurdistan, or in advisory formats tied to regional operations, a loss of presence in the capital would carry a message that militias would eagerly amplify. That is why every movement around the airport complex now resonates far beyond the tactical level, yet the militias themselves are not operating from a position of pure invulnerability. Reuters reported earlier this month that a commander from Islamic Resistance in Iraq was killed in an airstrike south of Baghdad. Other militia figures in PMF positions have also come under lethal attack. So while these groups are projecting momentum, they are also absorbing serious blows. Their strategy appears to rely on making the operating environment so unstable that even painful losses can be converted into political gains if foreign forces continue to pull back. That helps explain the language of urgency coming from militia channels. Ceasefires, deadlines, and withdrawal windows are not only military arrangements, they are theatrical devices. They allow armed factions to present themselves as the side granting or denying safe passage. Even when the full details cannot be independently verified, the public effect is valuable. A brief pause in attacks can be framed as an act of command, as if the groups now control the tempo of Western movement around Baghdad. In conflicts like this, controlling the story can be almost as useful as controlling the ground. The wider danger is that such moments are inherently unstable. A drone strike, a failed landing, a convoy hit, or a retaliatory air raid could collapse any temporary calm immediately. NATO itself has avoided detailed operational comment, citing safety and security. That silence leaves room for rivals to fill the information space with their own claims. In a war zone, ambiguity tends not to remain empty for long. It gets weaponized. Meanwhile, Iraq's own domestic pressures are intensifying. Anti-foreign force sentiment has been a recurring force in Iraqi politics for years, and every fresh confrontation strengthens demands for an end to external military presence. At the same time, the Iraqi state still depends on complicated security partnerships, including those built after the rise of ISIS. This is the contradiction at the heart of Baghdad's posture. The government wants sovereignty and stability, but the arena in which it must pursue both is crowded with armed actors stronger than many states would tolerate. For Washington, the problem is increasingly strategic rather than purely tactical. It is no longer just about defending one base or one compound. It is about whether a continued presence in Iraq serves a coherent purpose if every deployment is vulnerable to militia escalation and every response carries the risk of dragging Iraq deeper into a U.S.-Iran war. The phased drawdown deal reported in 2024 already acknowledged that reality in part. The events of March 2026 may be forcing the timeline to move from managed planning into crisis-driven execution. For Tehran and its allies, by contrast, the objective is to prove that pressure works. They want every Western redeployment to look like a concession extracted by force. They want every delayed strike, every paused ultimatum, and every mission adjustment to feed a single conclusion that the United States can threaten plenty, but sustaining dominance across the region is becoming harder, costlier, and less politically defensible. Whether that conclusion is fully true matters less in the short term than whether it becomes widely believed. So the story unfolding in Baghdad is bigger than one base complex and bigger than one round of militia statements. It is a test of how power now works in the Middle East through missiles and drones, yes, but also through deadlines, optics, deniability, relocation orders, and competing claims to legitimacy. If Western troops continue to recede from central Baghdad, Iran-backed factions will hail it as proof that resistance has been a superpower. US and NATO officials will insist they are making prudent adjustments under a broader plan. Iraq will say it is asserting sovereignty. In truth, all three narratives will contain part of the answer. What comes next depends on whether this moment becomes an exit ramp or a trigger point. If back-channel diplomacy holds and military moves remain limited, Baghdad may see a tense but orderly contraction of foreign presence. If strikes continue and symbolic deadlines turn into renewed attacks, the capital could become one of the most dangerous pressure points in a region already on edge. For now, one reality stands above the rhetoric. The war has redrawn the operational map in Iraq, and the contest over who forced that change is now almost as fierce as the fighting itself.